So, Prince William is standing completely alone in a dimly lit private anteroom inside St. James's Palace, his forehead pressed against a freezing cold windowpane as tears quietly stream down his face. The stoic, unyielding armor he spent nearly 30 years meticulously assembling has completely vanished within the span of a single breath. What drove the future King of England to a complete emotional breakdown in the dark isn't just one night of family tension. It is the catastrophic climax of a bitter, unresolved feud 30 years in the making. Just moments earlier, a high-stakes palace reception dissolved into pure anarchy when his uncle, Earl Spencer, pulled up uninvited, marched right past perimeter security, walked straight across a room full of shocked foreign dignitaries, and publicly confronted Queen Camilla over a priceless piece of jewelry pinned to her chest, a piece that belonged to Princess Diana. When you look closely at what was actually said versus what happened behind those closed doors, the entire incident reveals a brutal power struggle and a deep structural fracture within the royal family that no amount of carefully managed public relations can ever glue back together. It all began at precisely 8:45 in the evening at the private rear entrance of St. James's Palace. A sleek, dark sedan pulled up under the cover of the evening shadows. Out stepped Earl Spencer, Princess Diana's brother. He did not possess an official security clearance pass for this exclusive event, and his name was nowhere to be found on the master guest list managed by the Lord Chamberlain's office. But here is the reality of being a peer of the realm, with deep historical ties to the estate. You can slide past outer perimeter checkpoints without triggering immediate alarms, especially when the guards recognize exactly who you are and don't want to be the individuals who physically bar Princess Diana's brother from entering a palace building. So, he slipped inside completely unchecked. The reception inside was operating exactly as standard palace diplomacy dictates. King Charles stood near a grand fireplace, talking quietly with a European ambassador. Queen Camilla circulated through guests, dignitaries, and art patrons. It was a cultural preservation initiative, strictly non-political, the kind of quiet evening where the inner royal circle relaxes away from flashing media cameras. And then, the heavy double doors swung open. Earl Spencer walked in, and that carefully constructed peace dissolved into total chaos. What made this intrusion so dangerous was that Earl Spencer did not follow royal protocol. He didn't wait for a formal introduction. He didn't stand quietly in a greeting line. He walked with absolute, uncompromising purpose straight across the polished floorboards, ignoring stunned courtiers, and stopped just 3 feet away from Queen Camilla. The room fell into a suffocating, dead silence. The clinking of crystal glasses stopped instantly. High society guests realized they were watching an open, hostile family war erupt right in front of them, and nobody knew how to stop it. The relationship between the core royal family and the Spencer line has been a minefield ever since the summer of 1997. Both sides had agreed to maintain a polite, distant public facade for the sake of Prince William and Prince Harry. But Earl Spencer's aggressive entry proved that the emotional wounds surrounding his sister's legacy are entirely unhealed. Earl Spencer is not known for rash or uncalculated outbursts. His public actions have always been heavily weighed for maximum legal and media impact. So when he stood before Queen Camilla, raised a single-gloved hand, and pointed directly toward her left lapel, he was executing a deliberate, tactical strike. He demanded an immediate, public explanation as to why a specific, highly sentimental piece of private family history was being openly displayed at a public state function without the express written consent of the Spencer estate trustees. Pinned to Camilla's dress was a unique diamond and sapphire brooch that originally belonged to the Spencer family archives before being gifted to Diana on her wedding day in 1981. This piece was a cornerstone of the late princess's personal collection, a symbol of her maternal heritage that she wore to multiple high-profile international engagements. To Earl Spencer, seeing Camilla wear that specific brooch wasn't just a breach of royal etiquette. He saw it as a direct violation of his sister's legacy and a brazen infringement on his family's property rights. After Diana's passing, the legal ownership of her personal effects was divided under a complex network of private trusts. creating a vast legal grey area regarding which items belonged permanently to the crown and which pieces were strictly bound to her biological descendants. The tension inside the room reached a total breaking point as King Charles stepped forward to intervene between his wife and his former brother-in-law. His personal security detail immediately moved to encircle the group, attempting to form a physical human shield to block the view of remaining guests and prevent any smartphones from capturing the raw domestic dispute. Charles demanded the conversation be moved immediately into a private office upstairs, but Spencer flatly refused to back down. He stated clearly that if the palace chooses to display private family property in public, they have to be prepared to defend that choice openly in front of the entire court. That open defiance introduced a secondary mystery that was even more damaging than the confrontation itself. The guest list for this reception had been locked down 3 weeks prior, with every invitation card coded with an individual digital signature to prevent unauthorized entry or leaks. For Earl Spencer to know the exact hour, location, and wardrobe details of the event, he had to have received an inside leak from someone working directly within the Central Palace Secretariat. The terrifying realization that a senior staff member was actively coordinating with the Spencer family shook the king's chief of staff to the core. This exposed a massive vulnerability at the very heart of the household's operational security. Someone inside the palace wanted this confrontation to happen, or at minimum wanted Spencer to have the exact information he needed to execute it. As the security team finally managed to guide Earl Spencer toward a quiet exit corridor, the true emotional cost began to manifest. Prince William had stood completely frozen just a few feet away throughout the entire exchange, watching his mother's brother openly attack his stepmother while his father struggled to maintain composure. The sudden, violent collision of his childhood trauma with his modern royal duties proved completely overwhelming. Without saying a single word to his father or the remaining guests, William turned on his heel and walked rapidly out of the room through a side door leading to the private state apartments. The heavy mahogany door of the private anteroom clicked shut with a sharp echoing snap, cutting off the anxious hum of the compromised reception below. Prince William walked blindly toward the tall sash window overlooking the darkened courtyard. His hands were trembling as he reached for the brass window latch. He leaned his forehead against the cold, damp glass pane, staring out into the empty London night, quietly breaking into tears, completely alone in the dim light. That breakdown highlights the agonizing dual reality William has been forced to navigate since 1997. To the global public, he is the ultimate symbol of royal stability, a steady modern leader who approaches state duties with calm clinical precision. But beneath that perfectly curated public image sits a man deeply scarred by the toxic public breakdown of his parents' marriage and the tragic loss of his mother. By forcing Princess Diana's brother and Queen Camilla into an open confrontation over a piece of personal jewelry, the ambush tore away decades of psychological scar tissue, dragging William straight back to the most terrifying moments of his youth. The crisis escalated rapidly outside the anteroom door as the king's senior private secretary arrived holding a secure internal briefing folder. The official knocked softly, hesitant to intrude upon the heir's rare moment of vulnerability. But the administrative chaos downstairs required immediate executive direction. King Charles had demanded an instant lockdown of the event's communication logs, but the palace staff was completely paralyzed, terrified to act without knowing where the future king stood on the dispute. William did not answer the door. He stayed in the shadows of the window frame, struggling to regain control over his voice before facing the bureaucratic machinery of the crown. For several years, William had maintained a strict professional working relationship with his stepmother, recognizing her vital role in supporting his father through the heavy demands of the throne. He had consistently backed Camilla during major family transitions, even supporting her elevation to queen consort during the final months of the late queen's reign. So why did the sight of his uncle confronting her cause him to retreat in absolute distress rather than stepping forward to defend the queen from a public insult? The answer to this psychological riddle lies buried within a secret pact William made with his uncle Earl Spencer during a private gathering at Althorpe House in the summer of 2024. The Prince of Wales had quietly assured his mother's family that while he would always respect the official hierarchy of the current reign, he would never allow Diana's private sentimental artifacts to be absorbed into Camilla's public wardrobe rotation. When he walked into the reception room and saw his stepmother wearing the wedding brooch, William felt completely blindsided by his own staff's oversight. He realized the palace styling team had inadvertently violated his private promise to the Spencers, making an explosive family clash absolutely inevitable. Zachary bypassed the security locks to deliver a direct, handwritten note from the sovereign. The message, written in the king's characteristic fountain pen script, demanded William's immediate return to the drawing room to present a unified family front before the remaining foreign dignitaries were officially dismissed. The king was absolutely furious about the security breach and wanted his son to stand shoulder to shoulder with Camilla to signal to watching diplomats that the crown would not be intimidated by the rogue actions of an angry peer. William read the short note under the dim glow of the desk lamp, and his expression hardened as his initial wave of grief transformed into cold, protective anger. He flatly refused to return to the reception hall, telling the equerry to inform the king that he would not participate in a staged show of family harmony while his mother's memory was being weaponized for a palace public relations strategy. That blunt refusal represented a monumental, unprecedented defiance of his father's immediate authority. It opened a dangerous structural rift between the office of the Prince of Wales and the office of the King that threatened to destabilize the administration's long-term planning. The situation worsened when Kensington Palace's personal digital communications team detected an unusual spike in encryption activity originating from Earl Spencer's legal advisors. The Spencers were not retreating to let the matter settle quietly. They were already drafting a formal statement to the global press, prepared to reveal the exact historical provenance of the disputed brooch if the palace attempted to cover up the evening's incident as a minor scheduling mistake. William realized his father's policy of absolute stoic silence would be completely useless against an aristocratic family that possessed a global media platform and a deep, multi-generational grudge against the court. As the autumn mist settles over the Long Walk at Windsor, the immediate media storm surrounding the Althorp ambush finally begins to fade from the front pages of the morning newspapers. The rooms at St. James's Palace have returned to their usual, highly scripted stillness, but the traditional power dynamics of the court have been completely rewritten by a single week of high-stakes domestic warfare. The lines have been drawn, the legal covenants are securely registered, and the future king is left to navigate his fractured household with a newfound, complete independence that will forever alter the trajectory of his upcoming reign. The Brooch will wait in a vault until Princess Charlotte turns 18, a quiet symbol of a promise kept between a nephew and his uncle, and a stark reminder that some family wounds never fully heal, no matter how many palace doors you close.